All right, let's go ahead and send this out live. Let's go. Let me go ahead and make sure that we are locked and loaded to start talking about this slate here. All right, sure looks right. All right, yeah, we are sweet, good to go. All right, so normally, we typically don't run into a situation where we have two slates that'll be very, very similar. But when we look at this weekend's races for Chicago, today's contest and strategy and what the field is going to do will be very similar with tomorrow's race. Okay, with all these guys starting in the back in both of these races, and like Bubba Wallace, right? Like I ain't never even seen him finish a race before in my life. You ready for chalk bubbles? But when we look at this race today, the projections almost don't matter. Okay, what I want to do today and focus more on is what is the field doing? What are the exact lineups that we are competing against that we need to be aware of? This is the situation in NASCAR DFS to where you're just trying to figure out what the field is doing. The projections literally mean absolutely zero when we look at where ownership is leaning towards, when we look at what type of lineups are being used, so on and so forth. So we're going to go ahead and dive into that. Obviously, we get the practice stuff on the screen, but that's really not that important for the slate. Let me make sure that we are. I got everything here. Okay, cool. Obviously, this is where everybody lined up in practice and stuff. Obviously, we had a lot of instances in practice, so nobody got true long runs in. But when we're just taking a look at where everybody is at in terms of their lap speeds and stuff, this is where we're at. And my keyboard is dying. Oh no, that's not very useful. That's not good at all. Okay, cool. We're back. Thing to note, okay, where is everybody in the back of the field at? Okay, we have Connor Zilich, and yet again, I'm only looking at laps over, I think it's 71 miles an hour, but really, the main point is looking, or the main thing is looking at really, I mean, we have 75 here from Hill, we have a 70 from here from Connor Zilich. Creed is second to last lap, or pretty much his last lap. Came across the line at 74. We're not really concerned about these. I just really mainly removed all the true slower ones and stuff. But like Connor Zilich is very fast, clearly. Like no ifs, ands, or buts. Okay, honestly, or clearly, SVG is fast. Okay, let's just go ahead and hop right into where everybody is at back here. Now, another thing to note. Now, typically, I don't ask for the chat to share news in the video and stuff, just because I have a brain and can search things on my own. However, if anybody hears anything related to Ryan Sieg, that would be appreciated, because it has been radio silent for nearly 2.5 hours. We have no clue what has happened to Ryan Sieg, completely MIA. So that is something that we need to pay attention to. But when we look at where Eckes is, when we look at where Ryan Sieg is, when we look at where Taylor Gray is, when we look at Connor Zilich, okay, I first off want to start making points of where obviously all these guys are great plays. They're in the backfield. Obviously, ownership is going to center around these guys. I want to say that I am approaching this race in all the different avenues that we can attack it. So that is both stacking guys from the back of the field. That is stacking guys in the back of the field plus SVG. Okay, when we start looking at, yet again, projections really don't matter. So we can look at where we're at here. Actually, let me go ahead and just do this and put it in a new window for us. Okay, and we can start taking a look at where people are at. Actually, I could just take this one that we look at here. When we're looking, let me do one last thing here. When we're looking at what everybody is scoring and the expected points that people will somewhat be getting near and stuff. Yet again, this is my stuff. We'll look at what SaberSim is doing. We'll get a feel of where ownership is going to go and so on and so forth. But we see I think 64.4 is a very good projection for SVG, clearly fast in the field. And then Connor Zilich, Taylor Gray, Christian Eckes, able to actually compete with the guys up in the top half of the field who are expected to stay up there for the majority of the race. The things that get interesting and that start putting things into a bit of a not predicament, but where we get a lot of 1v1s is specifically where we get what does Christian Eckes do? What does Ryan Sieg do? Obviously we're waiting on news from anybody from Ryan Sieg. When we look at where he was at, and we can even do this right here on this one here. Specifically, if we're looking at the last two road course races, which I think, at least for this field, just so we're not having to go back through old seasons with different teams and stuff, this is where Ryan Sieg performed at Mexico. Okay, obviously starts in the back of the field. He gets wrecked on the last lap. Okay, so he technically, crosses the line on the second to last lap at 29th. If I am not mistaken, let me make sure here. Because he finishes in 29th. So actually people may have been out of the race at this point, because I know Ryan Sieg is like the last car that finishes on the lead lap. So let me see here. Yeah, because obviously, Nicolas Sanchez was out. Parker Retzlaff was out due to the crash and stuff. Like, this is where Ryan Sieg was running at Mexico. When we look at where he was at COTA, and again, you can use all these tools if you join us in the link in the description at TrueDFS.com. I'm not going to focus on really selling anything today, because I think the projections and everything across the board are pointless. We're just playing with what lineups are, with what lineups can be made. This is where Ryan ran at COTA earlier this year. Okay, so the 36-point projection is nothing insanely crazy from Ryan Sieg based on where he was at least just running by default at Mexico and where he has ran at COTA, and then on top of other road courses that he's been at. Like, at least when we do look at older seasons, Ryan Sieg is one of the consistent guys in the same car and the same equipment. We can see where he runs. He typically is hitting that 34 to 42 point scoring range when he starts in the back of the field. Okay, so yet again, let's go see. Let me go and refresh to see if SaberSim has updated their stuff yet, since I haven't ran it since I uploaded my stuff. I just want to see kind of where their projections are at. I know Sheets will have his stuff up shortly, and we can go ahead and take a gander at those projections when they come out. Okay, so SaberSim has their stuff out. Yet again, just let's just see kind of where they're at on default from a raw projection. Yet again, I use a single point. They use main projections. They have Connor Zilich, Shane, Taylor Gray, Eckes, Sam Mayer, Hill, Quaffle, Perkins, Creed, Allgaier, Smith, Love, Connor Mozak, Ryan Sieg in these situations here. I want to specifically look at kind of what they have as the bell curve for Ryan Sieg here. I also want to look at kind of what they're doing with Connor Zilich here and stuff here. So, like, this is what I mean, right? Like, he's never scoring this in his lifetime. What do I have him for? I got him for 59 points. So I mean, maybe highest. He finished like third. Like, I don't know why we have 10% of the sims having him score like 85 points. That's pretty nuts, but whatever. I digress. Let's go ahead and run these and see what the field is doing. Okay, so while this runs, when we look at the avenue of ways that we can build lineups based on the projections that we're seeing, okay, it's very likely from a projection standpoint, and yet again, just because we have a question mark around Ryan Sieg at the moment, it's very likely that two of these three drivers are going to compete to be optimal today. Okay, if you throw Ryan Sieg in there, then absolutely, I would envision two of these three drivers competing to be optimal. It changes with Ryan Sieg because he's $6,600. When we start building lineups and stuff, that lines up with the 66 is right along the range of where your last value potentially can come from, or your second to last if you're using somebody in the 5K range that is looking decent, whether it's Blaine Perkins, Josh Balicki, any of these people here. Okay, and so when we're looking at lineups that are specifically building with, with SVG and stuff, obviously the 12-5 and the 11-5 from Connor Zilic make it a very difficult play. The more convenient or more likely value build that ends up being used, and why this is so important is because this race has virtually no laps, right? 50 laps means absolutely nothing. Okay, so we're all focusing on the raw finishing positions and the raw place differential from these drivers, okay? Tanner Gray and Christian Eckes at $8,300 and $9,000 respectively work much easier if you're chasing a SVG win, or if you're building with a situation where SVG runs into issues and you then by default can Connor Zilic. Okay, so that's showing that Tanner Gray and Christian Eckes are the two most likely people to hit optimal lineups today. Okay, yet again, with whatever happens with Ryan Sieg, I would lean to him scoring enough to be add value based on where he typically runs at road courses, even with no information regarding him at all. But that's where I'm at. So at that point, we're building with 4 positions left in our lineup, since we're seeing that Tanner Gray and Christian Eckes are most likely going to be optimal today. Yet again, continuing on, and also most of the contests are filled at this point, so I'm actually speaking more so on the smaller contests, okay, because we're probably going to see trains in the main 10 that filled earlier with the 8800. We still have about 70 places left in the new $10, but what I'm talking specifically, and continuing on in this video, is focusing on that smaller $10 and focusing on this smaller $5, the lug nut, because those are the more viable contests to possibly not run into duplications that can still compete, since the contests are small. I feel like you're giving up way too much potential equity if you're trying to get drastically different in that main $10 or even the 4, just because we're dealing with 3,500 and 8,000 lineups in those two. Okay, it's gonna be really difficult to find a unique lineup in the bigger contest today, just due to what we're dealing with here. So again, I want to go ahead and just look at what SaberSim is pushing. In a situation like this, I'm not too concerned about any shortcomings their stuff would have. They're just running off of the raw expected finishing positions here. And so yet again, when we just sort by, at the moment, we're just sorting by their highest projected scores. Okay, their 3 highest guys are Connor Zilic, Gray, and Eckes, and then SVG. Obviously, it's the SVG versus Connor Zilic discussion here. I'm very much in favor of playing lineups like this because I feel like people are going to want to fade Connor. Yet again, I mean, we're just talking about how to approach lineups, or I'm speaking out loud of what I want to do. For me, since Taylor Gray and Eckes work so well together, I'm much more in favor of playing SVG with Connor Zilic versus the SVG lines with Taylor Gray and Eckes, just because you're funneled into a drastically different situation to build. Okay, and when I'm talking about getting different on this slate in terms of guys who could compete to either rival a value that Tanner Gray or Christian Eckes has, okay, who are people that are slightly cheaper than these individual drivers, who understand we might not be starting all the way back in the 30s, but who are people in this price range that you can pivot to in order to get a Connor Zilic an SVG type of lineup, or just paying up for more people and stuff. When we're looking at guys in the backfield who answer that call, it's people like Jeb Burton, it's people like Dean Thompson, it's people like Kaz Gralla. Okay, when we're looking at where these individuals have finished, I mean, you look at where Dean Thompson has been running. I mean, we even look back at I believe Mexico is a really good just to see where people are running and stuff. Obviously, we were just there, but I think that racing is going to be a pretty decent tell of how this thing's going to go, especially if we're expecting, a lot of chaos or potential yellows and stuff. And with this field not really having much experience here, like Dean Thompson seems like a really, really good play today. Trying to get different. That's not getting stupid. That's not throwing away equity. Like we're not playing Brad Perez hoping he gets top 15. We're playing somebody who has shown decent speed and the ability to actually drive through the field in a very similar situation. Okay, and so right off the bat, I think I think these lineups are very, very valuable, or very viable, rather. We then continue to see where things are at. I pretty much agree with everything from the raw projections that SaberSim has. I really don't see anything out of the ordinary. I mean, Carson Quapple, Sammy Smith are guys that are starting in the teens that are being suggested in my stuff as well, in order to have like as people like as the one-offs or whatever. So being aware of where the pivots are coming from, and not just plain stupid people. Like there's like no, for me, there's like no real reason to play like Sheldon Creed today, okay, at its price range, or Austin Hill. You're having to move way more salary in order to get Creed or Austin Hill, and you're automatically throwing away spots for place differential. And in most situations, if you're playing Creed or Hill, that means you're not playing SVG. That means if SVG even remotely does what's expected, he's automatically blocking your lineup out from cashing. Okay. Lineups are going to be very, very close scoring today. Okay. And so, yet again, that's why, a Dean Thompson or an Anthony Alfredo off of Eckes, Connor Zilich, or Gray is the direction you want to go, versus playing somebody like hoping that like Brad Perez has a great day, or like something like that. I do want to see what SaberSim is giving people from a sim perspective, because yet again, since we're not dealing with fast laps and laps led, whether it's SaberSim or any content provider or independent, sims and stuff, typically road courses are much more easier to sim out. You have less variables in terms of where projections are going to go. It's just based on, their speed, their skill level, like where you're expected to finish where you should be much more in these races than other races. So when we're looking at just kind of where things are, let me make sure we're here, where things are going to. Yet again, we don't really see a drastic change. I think we see potentially Eckes is being removed, but obviously Connor Zilich, SVG, Tanner Gray is there, and so yet again, we're really playing with a very limited spots. If anything, you're going to have chunks of lineups in this contest that are playing the exact same 4 drivers, and it's just 2v2s across the board for what we're doing here. Yet again, SVG, Connor Zilich, Connor Mozak, Jeb Burton, Dean Thompson, Perkins, like Burton, Dean Thompson, and Perkins, based on where they're starting and their price ranges. Even if we're getting different, like if you're in a situation where, hey, I'm not going to play Taylor Gray, or I'm not going to play Eckes, these are the footsteps, like these are the pathways that you're going to end up going. So even like this contest, or this lineup, which is a pretty really, really good pivot, okay, might be slightly lower on the projection scale, and it shows as like a decent pivot, you're getting different enough, it's still going to be played, because this is a pretty good lineup that I would argue is going to compete to cash and stuff today. Okay, so understanding that most small pivots, like Balicki shows up well in my stuff, Balicki shows up well here. I'm assuming that a lot of people see Balicki as the 5K play that they're going to use with Ryan Sieg, Eckes, so on and so forth, right? A lot of people are going to use that. Okay, if they don't use Balicki, people are going to be thinking about possibly using Blaine Perkins, or possibly using Ryan Ellis. Like we're not, you're not going to get that drastically different today by just taking a basic pivot, or one off or whatever. I mean, even on my stuff, again, this is their sim stuff, and this is what I'm more. Let me go back to the raw projections. If you're in a situation and you remove SVG blows a motor, and yet again, this is not play him or not. This is how I go about building lineups in situations where SVG fails, regardless of the outcome or regardless of what causes SVG to not be optimal today. Okay, these are the lineups that are going to be played a lot. Okay, from a raw perspective. Now, my stuff is leaning, if I'm not playing SVG, it's wanting to throw in Eckes, Tanner Gray, and Ryan Sieg together. Obviously, this is pushing Connor Zilich a lot more than what my stuff is. But yet again, I mean, we're just splitting hairs here. But we're seeing very, very similar types of lineups, like this one, for example: Connor Zilich, Gray, Eckes, Carson Quapple, Sammy Smith, Brad Perez. Like that lineup's going to be played whether you like it or not, because that's a stack in the backfield if SVT doesn't work and stuff. Okay, so what can we do to potentially get different here? What can we do to potentially, not not have, what is it? Huge trains. Like on my end here, when I'm looking, when I'm aware of what my stuff is showing and where it potentially might go and stuff, this is my highest projected line: Sammy Smith, Gray, SVG, Josh Balicki, Christian Eckes, Ryan Sieg. I think that lineup will be played. I'm yet again specifically, I'm trying to think of what I can do in this 10 and the $5 that only has 1,100 people and 1,400 people in it. What can I do to be solo there? That's how I'm speaking in this video, or for this contest specifically and stuff. I think that's taken a lot of, or rather, I think this is a race where you understand you're going to be with the trains and you just play them and like whatever, and just understand you're capping the ROI, and it's just a slate like that. And yet again, tomorrow's kind of the same way. That's why using this and paying attention of where ownership goes today will probably be pretty telling of where ownership goes tomorrow and what type of builds are being used. But I think today is a day that you kind of embrace safe, high volatility type of players. As I said, I think Dean Thompson is one. I think Kaz Gralla is one at 67 and 700 respectively. Jeb Burton as well, Parker Retzloff. These are more so the guys that I'm interested in the back of the field. I'm really concerned about Alfredo. Now, when we look at the Mexico race, obviously we had that big crash that took a lot of people out. Let's go ahead and look at the end. What the hell? Oh, it's because they scored the same, probably. Yeah. When we look at the rankings of where people scored at Mexico, Suarez goes from the back of the field. Okay. Very, very likely that Connor Zilich does the same thing. Eckes goes from the back of the field. Literally an identical situation as to Mexico. You have basically Connor Zilich starting last. You have Eckes starting last. Taylor Gray is going to have speed. He's going to go up through the field, right? Like your last three highest scorers. Yet again, I know this is Suarez, but Connor Zilich, who started first, who ends up scoring, who starts first, gets damaged, gets moved a lot. Like, how many situations have we played Connor Zilich starting first? The guy gets spun, speeds on pit lane, whatever, has to start last and drives up through the field. Okay. Like, very, very likely these guys are in this range. It's going to depend on, wherever SVG kind of lies here and stuff. But when we're looking at, Dean Thompson going from 26 to 12, now yet again, we did have that big crash and stuff. Even Alfredo going from 28 to 21st. I guess Chris Wright isn't in this race. Even the situations where like Brad Perez, starting 37 to 26 in this last race. Now he's starting 26 today, but that's why things are possibly into him. Balicki goes from 28 to 24th. I want to see what Balicki did really fast here. So Balicki, I would let yellow gets past here. Parker Retzloff obviously involved in the crash. Same thing with Ryan Ellis. They get involved in that crash when Ty Gibbs gets spun. But I just don't know if there's really a lot of situations here that works, or not that works, but that gets you solo enough. Let me see what you guys are saying here. What's going on, everybody? I don't know, Danny. I have no clue, Danny. This is my third month playing NASCAR DFS. I have no clue. And honestly, AD, I don't even know if Connor Zilich is in my core. Who knows? Who idea? Who knows? Let's see. Josh Williams as well. I know BG3 brought up Williams. We can go ahead and look at where he was at. Now the main issue is that so many of these idiots end up flipping these stages and stuff. Finishes 20th, 35, starting 27th day at 61. I mean, I would much rather get different in this range than really playing anybody here, because there's a real likelihood that a vast majority of people, really from outside of whoever wins the race, there's going to be a lot of people who actually don't even get anywhere close to value here, because if SV, we have 50 laps, the leader is, most likely going to be SVG. Let's say he leads 27 laps. Okay, we get our yellows and stuff. So we get stage 1, stage 2, like however many yellows we have, and we can even take a quick look and look at the amount of yellows that we have. I guess we'll transition to the dashboard and stuff. Gonna look at these races here. We had now these races did have weather involved, okay, but our first race here we had. Even I can't even see that. I'm freaking blind. We had 3 yellows the first year and 7 last year. Green flag laps are looking at 18 and 34. Okay, so Dom points 15.4 and 27.8. Okay, so yet again, if SVG is expected to lead, or whoever leads, right? Like they're taking those. Everybody else is just sitting at the position that you get for whatever position you're in, right? We go ahead and look at where that's at, and we look at the points that you're just going to be at here. Like, it's very unlikely that anybody is really competing to really score anything. I mean, that's why, Jesse Love, Sammy Smith, Carson Quapple, not just in my stuff, but SaberSim stuff is showing up as like the pivots or whatever, if you're going to use somebody in the top 12 or top, really 18. I mean, even Austin Green is slightly there on value. Same thing with Matt DiBenedetto. But yeah, I don't know. I firmly believe if you were to play 100% of Connor Zilich, Taylor Gray, Ryan Sieg, and Eckes, if you played 10 lines with those 4 drivers and then just use the remaining 2 positions as 1v1s, I think you would have by default 3 lineups cash. Why is that important? Okay, and we can use my stuff, or we'll use SaberSim's just because, yet again, we'll see if I'm right here or whatever. If we're using these 4 drivers together, right? Where are they in terms of projected scores? Okay, typically I try and find lineups, regardless of what sport is, as long as they're in the top 100. If I'm running 5,000 lines, typically that's pretty decent. That's like the first thing I'd want to look at. We then look at the cash rate of these individual lineups, okay? Typically, we're right at like 28.3, 27, 25. As I stated, if you played, 10, you're probably going to have 3 cash by default. That's pretty much where we're at, okay? We don't look at win rate. Now, yet again, in order for this to happen, this is situations where SVG fails. But even still, 0.08, like that's actually not bad for running these 4. That means, we get a situation like Mexico to where your front runners all get taken out by each other. Okay, if you remember, your leaders at Mexico pretty much all killed each other up front and stuff. I'm not saying to do that. I'm just giving a situation of kind of what we're having to build around in a slate like this. Casgrala or Burton. I like Casgrala because you have to build different to get to Grala. I'll like if he blows a motor or wrecks himself, whatever. I'm perfectly fine with that. Who would I play under 6K? I mean, I would default to whatever my projections are showing. And I mean, you've seen them on the screen. Whenever I was showing the value and stuff, I'd go by whoever has the most value, or the guy that allows you to have the highest projected lineup. In the 5K range, it seems like Balicki is going to be the most popular play in that situation. If you want upside in terms of finishing position, if you're looking for forcing in as many high projected guys as possible, it's probably going to be Ryan Ellis. Okay. When we look at the dominator analysis for these races, yet again, we're seeing runaways for the most part in the Xfinity series from these races and stuff, and a pretty drastic like 4-1 laps led a fast lap just because we have so many laps removed from being counted since we're under yellow. And just a heads up, we are 51 minutes away from lock. Okay, we go and look at the place differential back here. Typically, regardless of what forces somebody back here, if it's a Joe Gibbs car, if it's a Collie car, if it's a Motorsports car, hey, man, it really seems similar to what we're dealing with today. And it's a good guy in the back of the field. You normally want to take those guys. Okay, we have 4 of those guys here. Okay, we have a drastic amount of place differential in these races. If you start in the back of the field, I mean, typically we see this at a normal race. The crossover is usually around 16th and stuff here, where we're seeing that crossover around 22nd. When we look at the biggest movers in these races, hey, man, seems very, very similar to what we're looking at today. And Eckes has done it before. I mean, obviously he did it at Mexico, but we've seen him do it in the truck series as well. We've seen Collie cars do that. When we look at the scoring ranges, usually much not necessarily higher, although they are higher across the board. Typically, we're seeing like mid or lower 40s, but we're seeing that they're all very, very close to one another. Like there's really no point in zooming in and seeing the actual numbers, just because we're seeing that they're all very, very similar. We got to be scoring pretty much near 50 points in these situations here. Obviously, finish position is huge. Okay, but some people might see this and be like, hey, don't we want to chase, guys up front and stuff? Yes, but typically what's huge about the finishing position? Oh, yeah, we have, several guys in the back of the field that on any given day, and that's Connor, that's Taylor Gray, and that's Eckes, who are top 15 finishers right off the bat. Okay, you then combine that with where they're coming from place differential standpoint. You're either playing guys who are holding a finishing position up front, which is, these individual drivers here, people like Jesse Love, Williams Wallace, Justin Allgaier, Alex LeBay, the guys who are up here versus directly against the guys who are in the back of the field who could potentially gain positions if this race gets crazy. Okay. And then obviously we look at the top fantasy scores, which really aren't that important to go over at this point, because this slate is drastically different than most of these, just because we have so many people in the back of the field that are favorites to get in the top 15 and blow value out of the water. We look at the 2 races that we've done at road courses this year. We just look at the average speed of where these guys are at. Connor Zilich, Austin Hill, Taylor Gray, literally 2 of your 3 best guys this year are starting dead last. You then throw Eckes in there, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 3 of your 6 best guys this year on speed at road courses are starting 30th on back. Like, that's where we're at today. Like, that's why it's like I really don't think projections really matter today at all. It's just going to be, can you make a lineup? Can you build a lineup that's different enough to not be stupid? I do believe that's where I'm at. I know I did mention that I like Hasgralik one. I think Burton will be the more popular option, and I think it's 60-40 that Jeb Burton performs better than Kaz Gralla. So Burton is probably the better play there. I just like Kaz Gralla because I want to try and get a bit different in my builds. I don't really have anything else to say, but yet again, this is all the things we went over here, or all the analysis that we looked at, all the questions that we're kind of trying to find or discover in terms of pivots and stuff. We are having to do the exact same thing tomorrow in the Cup race, and like it's going to be an exact replica of this slate tomorrow. So, that's mainly it. I don't know. Don't really have anything else to say. Yeah, that's mainly it. I guess I will talk to you guys later. See you. Bye bye.